to Linda and Alan Zwern, who spent almost 2 hours with me yesterday helping me with a new cell phone plan. I played the messages from this past week into Google's Notebook LM again, and they created a conversation that recaps the main topics. Again, this is totally AI generated. If you didn't hear last Sunday's recap, you should go back and listen to that one too. I am amazed by this tool. The thought that anyone can buy a $250 Chromebook and generate content with this tool is mind-boggling. I think the call to action this week was reframe. Reframe your habits as a chain to not break. Reframe the attention we give each other, and reframing fears as challenges to help us grow. Think about the call to action that you hear in this recap. Here you go.
Ever feel like you're drowning in motivational quotes, but you just want like the actual how-to part?
Right.
So today we are diving deep into Chad Smith's messages.
Yeah, there's some real gold in those little nuggets of wisdom.
So we're going to break it down, figure out how we can actually use them. And I think a good place to start would be with Don't Break the Chain.
Absolutely, yeah.
He talks about John Sutherland, ran every single day for over 20,000 days.
Oh, wow.
Which it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Makes me think of Seinfeld's thing, marking an X on the calendar every day he writes.
Yeah, yeah. You know, both of those examples, they really highlight that power of momentum, right? Like, think about pushing a heavy flywheel. It's tough at first, but with each consistent push, it gets a little easier, and eventually that thing's spinning like crazy, right?
Right.
It's the same with our habits. Each small action, it's like a push on that flywheel. And before you know it, you've created this unstoppable force.
You're on a roll. Okay, so we've got our chain of good habits going, but let's be real. Some tasks, they feel impossible. Like, how does Chad deal with those frogs he talks about? You know, the big, ugly tasks we all have.
Well, he says you got to eat the frog first thing in the morning. Procrastination, it's often about avoiding the stuff we find difficult or unpleasant.
Makes sense.
So by tackling that big, ugly thing first, you basically eliminate decision fatigue, which, let's be honest, that's a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a mental victory that kind of sets the tone for the rest of your day.
Totally. And it's like you're free from that weight, right? Because you've already done the hardest thing.
Exactly. Our brains are wired to conserve energy. So we got to be strategic.
And speaking of energy, Chad talks a lot about presence, even calls it a superpower. He's big on this tool called concentration grids, a way to train your focus. Have you ever tried those?
Yeah, actually, they're from Brian Kane. Right. He's huge in the world of like peak performance, and his concentration grids. They're fun.
Okay, good. Fun is good.
Right. But they're also seriously effective for training your attention span, which, let's be real, it's a muscle.
Oh, for sure.
And in today's world,
it's being challenged constantly.
Oh, yeah. Our phones, emails, it's nonstop.
Our brains are like pulled in a million different directions.
It's no wonder we have trouble focusing.
So we're basically training our brains to like be more present, right? More focused. But what about those times when, you know, you feel the pressure, not the bad kind, but the kind that makes you grow? Chad talks about desirable difficulties, which sounds kind of intense, but also interesting.
Right.
He mentioned a study where students actually did better on a test when the font was harder to read.
Oh, wow. I've heard of that. It's like our brains have to work a little harder.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's not about making things easy on ourselves. Right?
No, not at all. It's that whole what doesn't kill you makes you stronger idea.
Exactly. So desirable difficulties. It's about pushing ourselves outside that comfort zone a little bit. But how do we know if we're pushing ourselves enough? Like, how do we know it's the good kind of discomfort and not just like fear holding us back?
Well, Chad talks about that too. He tells this story. It's actually kind of funny about when he was starting a church and he was so nervous. He thought it meant he was in the wrong place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. I remember when I first started doing stand-up comedy, I was terrified.
Yeah.
Like heart racing, palms sweating. I thought for sure I was going to bomb.
Oh, no.
But then I realized that fear, it was just like my brain trying to protect me.
Yeah.
You know, keep me safe from something new.
Exactly. It's a natural response, but it's about recognizing that, right? That sometimes that fear, it's a signpost. It means we're onto something good.
Okay, I like that. So it's about like reframing it.
Exactly. Reframing that fear as excitement. There's this great book, The Tools, and one of the things it suggests is to literally yell, bring it on, when you feel that fear response.
Bring it on. I love that. Okay, yeah, I like that. Bring it on. So I guess what we're really talking about here is like mindset.
Mindset is huge. Yeah. And it ties into everything we've been discussing, right?
Right, like building those positive chains, tackling those frogs.
Yes, being present, embracing the discomfort, all of it. It all comes down to mindset.
Okay, so for people listening who are like, okay, I'm convinced I need to try this. What's like the one thing they should take away from all of this? The thing they can actually use?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is this. It's not about being perfect. Like, nobody's perfect.
Yeah, no.
It's about taking action, even small steps, consistently.
Because those small steps, they add up.
They really do. It's like that old saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But it's not enough to just take that first step.
You have to keep going.
Exactly. You have to keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep moving forward.
So what's like one frog someone could eat like tomorrow, just to kind of get started?
Ooh, that's a good question. It could be something small, like maybe there's a phone call you've been putting off.
The worst.
Right. Or maybe it's something bigger, like finally starting that project you've been dreaming about. Whatever it is, think about how good it'll feel to finally tackle it.
To just like check it off the list.
Yes. And think about the positive ripple effects that one action could have on other areas of your life. It's amazing how much our energy shifts when we finally stop procrastinating on the things that matter.
That's such a good point. It's like, you're not just getting that one thing done, you're like freeing up mental space for other stuff.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, that was a great conversation.
It really was. I always love chatting with you.
Likewise. And thank you to everyone listening. Be sure to check back next time for another deep dive. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, bring it on.